Hi there, my name is Sarah Horn. I work for the Office of Career Development and Community Engagement at the University of West Florida, and I am going to be giving a presentation virtually on the do's and don'ts of interviewing. We're going to look at the do's and don'ts at a lot of different stages of interviewing. And I'll also say if you're not very familiar with interviewing, I would recommend reading up on some strategies. You can use our career development guide, which is linked on our website. That's a really helpful guide if you're just getting started learning how to interview. And you can also watch another video. I think it's called Putting Your Best Foot Forward. I recorded that, and that also touches on some interviewing skills. So I'm just going to briefly go over some of the do's and don'ts of interviewing. We're going to look at that from the angle of preparing for your interview, from the physical appearance that you present in an interview, answering interview questions, your nonverbal communication and some of that behavior, and after the interview. So let's get started with preparing. So on the do column, you'll want to determine what type of attire is expected of you. So this can be as simple as when the employer calls to say that they're interested in interviewing you, you can just say, okay, what type of professional attire do you typically recommend? Do you recommend business casual or business professional? Also, plan your travel. So if you're interviewing in person with a company, it's a really good idea to be familiar with the company's location. So if you need to make arrangements to get transportation, you'll want to prepare that in advance. And I also sometimes recommend driving to the location just to get familiarity with the area that it's in. I would also really recommend practicing your interview skills. So we offer mock interview appointments in our department for free. You can schedule that in Handshake, and if not that, you can practice with a trusted friend or a loved one. So some things not to do as you prepare. Don't forget to plan a few questions that you can ask at the end of your interview. So at the end of pretty much any interview, the interviewer is going to say, what questions do you have for us? So it's a really good idea to plan in advance what questions you'll ask in that event. Don't wait to iron your suit or your clothing that you plan to wear until the morning of, because you never know when you might spill coffee down your shirt, or well, I guess that wouldn't really help if you're ironing, but what I mean to say is something unexpected might come up, and it might be better just to have your outfit laid out in advance. And don't neglect to make use of our resources, which again are the Career Development Guide. We also offer some virtual interview software that you can access through our website, and our Career Development Guide is also really helpful. So in terms of physical appearance, do always practice good hygiene and grooming. So make sure that your hair is combed and clean, you've brushed your teeth, you've bathed your body, you smell clean. Choose a well cut and conservative suit, or just well-fitting attire that's it's in good condition. And make sure that the details are attended to. So you'll want to make sure that your nails are clean and that you don't have any like chipped nail polish or like jagged nails. Make sure your hair is clean, you don't have food in your teeth. Just make sure that all of those small details, like your shoes aren't scuffed, make sure those are taken care of. And on the don't column, don't wear like a ton of makeup. I would just wear like if you do wear makeup, just wear a natural looking makeup style. It's not the chance to do any like crazy smoky eyes or anything like that. We would recommend avoiding fragrance if you can, because sometimes that can make others' allergies flare up, and that would not be a very good impression to make if your interviewer is sneezing or breaking out in hives because of the perfume or cologne you've chosen. And again, don't forget to make sure that your shoes are in good shape. This is something that a lot of people pay attention to. So make sure that your shoes are not scuffed up, and that also that they're appropriate. They should be closed-toed, dark-colored, solid, neutral shoes, low heel if you choose to wear a heel. Just make sure that they're not scuffed or scratched, and that they are nicely polished. So when answering interview questions, do take your time if you need it. So a lot of people think that they need to just come right out the gate with their very first answer that comes to mind. And that's not always the healthiest strategy, because I think we've all been in the situation where we think, oh gosh, I could have worded that differently, or I didn't say what I meant to say in that situation. So take your time and say, oh gosh, I haven't considered that question. Do you mind if I take a moment and think about it? Or wow, that's a really good question. I'm gonna need a minute to think about that. Always relate your experience and skills to the position at hand. So don't assume that what you're saying to the employer is like really connecting to the job in their mind. It really helps them if you can say, I am a really great communicator, and I think that this would be valuable because I'm going to have to communicate with multiple people in multiple professional fields. So my ability to adapt my communication style to different people might be a really big asset for your company. Next, always discuss your selling points. So what I mean by that, what are the strengths that you can contribute to the job? What are some of the assets or qualities that you can provide that are going to strengthen your ability to do that job well? Don't neglect to talk about, and if you've received any awards or achieved like certifications, that can also be really valuable to employers. And don't always share, sorry, that was confusing. Do share the upsides of your downfalls. And what I mean by that is it's not uncommon that you might be asked about your greatest weakness in an interview, or perhaps how you responded to a failure. So in those situations, you kind of have to address some of your shortcomings. So as you talk about those, don't necessarily like downplay your failure or downplay your weakness, but instead talk about what you've learned from that experience or what you'll do differently moving forward. So don't just say the first thing that comes to mind. Take a moment to reflect on the answer and consider, why is the employer asking me this question and what type of information do they want from me? Don't just see it as like an opportunity to like blaze through the questions, because an interview is a competitive scenario and it's not just something you have to get through. It's something that you are kind of competing with other people in. So make sure that you're giving strategic, well thought out answers. And don't beat yourself up if you don't answer a question or two perfectly. Try not to get hung up in that moment on the things that you didn't do perfectly, because that's going to hinder your ability to answer mindfully, thoughtfully, and clearly in questions moving forward. So if something doesn't work well, just let it roll off your back and keep moving forward. Persevere. And lastly, don't badmouth others or use foul language, because that just generally gives off a bad impression. In terms of nonverbal communication, definitely sit up straight in your chair with your feet flat on your floor, because that demonstrates respect and confidence. And if you can use hand gestures, that is a really beneficial thing to do. It can help illustrate your points and show that you're engaged, but I wouldn't recommend doing anything big or crazy with your hands like I'm doing now. Try to keep them, pretty close to you, and make sure that there's a reason for using them. And if it's natural for you to smile, like I tend to be a person who smiles a lot, don't forget to smile. But if it's not terribly natural for you, don't force yourself to smile, because sometimes that can come off as a little less genuine. Don't avoid eye contact, because eye contact again conveys confidence and connection with the interviewer. Don't do any distracting, repetitive motions or fidgeting, because that can be, again, very distracting for the employer. Don't give a weak handshake either. So just to give you a little bit of information about shaking hands, you'll want to go web to web. So this little section here is the web of your hand. So try to meet the other person's web with yours, and then do just a couple of good like pumps, maybe 2 or 3 pumps, and when they release, you can also release. After the interview, definitely send a thank you note within 24 hours if you can. So you can handwrite your thank you note and send it on like a thank you card or a piece of stationery that you might have. Send it to that employer. But sometimes it's not practical to do that, because maybe the employer is trying to make a hiring decision like that day. So when you get back to your car, maybe you can type out a quick thank you email on your phone, or when you get back to your computer, you can do that. So ideally, you can send a personalized handwritten message, but if that's not possible or feasible, an email is totally acceptable. Also, reflect on the experience and try to remember like what went well, what didn't go very well for you, so that you are able to do better in your next interviews. And if something went really well, you can carry that right on into the next interview. And always keep applying for more jobs, even if you think something went really well. That's never a guarantee. So definitely keep putting in applications. Don't just sit and wait for an interviewer to call you back after an interview. If it's been a couple of days, maybe like between 4 and 7 days, and you haven't heard anything, and you know that you probably should have heard of something or heard from them by now, it's appropriate to send them an email and say, hey, I just wanted to follow up. I really enjoyed meeting you and your team, and I just wanted to see if there were any other materials that you might need for me in the process of making the next decision. Again, don't beat yourself up if something didn't go really well, or if you get a message that says thanks but no thanks. Don't beat yourself up. Just use that reflective piece that I mentioned in the do column. Use that reflective piece to think about what maybe didn't go very well and what did go well. And then perhaps you can schedule a mock interview with us if you want to get out some of your nerves when it comes to interviewing and ask a professional career coach some questions. And don't make assumptions about the hiring decision. So I would not recommend posting on social media that you just got a job, or telling people that you just got a job if you've just interviewed, because the interview is like one of the steps in the process to getting a job, but an interview does not guarantee that the job is yours. So don't make any assumptions about the hiring decision, and just continue to stay humble and reflective about the experience. So these are my top do's and don'ts when it comes to interviewing. If you have any questions at all, we are located in Building 19, but of course during this virtual period, we are all working remotely from our homes. So you can send us an email at career@uwf.edu, and we also have a little chat widget on our homepage, which is uwf.edu/career, that we would love for you to utilize. And if we can do anything for you at all, please let us know. Have a good day and good luck interviewing.